Hi, I'm Shashwat. I hope you're all having a really great day. During COVID, I made a short documentary film which went on to win several awards. This documentary, Postcard to the Unknown Child, can be watched by clicking on the link above. COVID-19 pandemic has wreaked havoc in our lives. Many of us have witnessed heart-wrenching scenes of our loved ones being admitted to hospitals, sometimes never to be seen again. Our investigative journalist Tuk Tuk is documenting this entire saga of pandemic. This time, he has arrived at a hospital in Italy. In this short tutorial, I'll walk you through on how this postcard was made. As always, I started with a sketch. The scene is set inside a hospital in Italy. A friend of Tuk Tuk is admitted in intensive care while the doctor is trying to save his life. From my asset library, I pulled out the models that I can use for this hospital scene. I realized that I only had a normal bed and not a hospital bed. To make it seem like a hospital bed, I had to do some adjustments to it. As for my characters, you have already met Tuk Tuk, as well as the other characters in the previous postcards. The Firefly is a new entry in this series, but it has featured in one of my short animated film, The Sugar Cube. So for the other props, I looked for references online. These are some of the references that I found. This blend file is where some of my hospital equipment were made. These are made from one of these references, and this is how I made them. I'm going to create this monitor as an example. And using this same technique, I created the other monitors, the ventilator and this device as well as the socket board. Then I duplicated them and arranged them according to the sketch and the references. Since there were many machines, I added this mess of cables that run everywhere. These are just Bezier curves with a rubber material applied to them. Next, I added the bed and these bottles. I also duplicated the Firefly and the machinery to depict other patients in the room. Now the scene is divided into lights, camera, characters, interior and interior assets. If you have noticed, this blend seal does not have Tuk Tuk in it. That's because I wanted to show Tuk Tuk peering through a glass window and his reflection bouncing off the glass. So I gave Tuk Tuk his own blend file so that I can render him separately and composite him later on top of this. Now let's talk about lighting. The light in this scene is divided into 4 types. The ceiling light, the window light, the helmet light and the fill light. Ceiling lights simulate light coming from the ceiling. They're spotlights so that I can focus where the light is supposed to fall. Helmet lights are also spotlights, and as the name implies, they simulate the light coming from the helmet. Then there are the window lights. These are area light. They are not actually coming from a window source, they just simulate the daylight coming from the window. Lastly, I added the fill light, and it's just an area light to fill the shadows slightly. And this is what the scene looks like in Blender. Now I'll render this file and take it to Fusion for compositing. This is the scene that I rendered out to Fusion. This is the background render, also the main render where everything is happening. Now I color corrected the scene to make it brighter by increasing the gamma value. Along with the main render, I had also rendered the emission pass. When you render an emission pass, any object in your scene that emits light will be rendered in the emission pass. Now to this pass, I added a soft glow and merged it with the background. Next, I added a parallel soft glow but masked it to the 2 headlamps on the helmet. And finally, I used 2 polygonal masks to mask out the background node or a solid color to create the spotlight effect. Now we create the glass window that separates Tuk Tuk from the hospital room. Here I used one of my reference images of a hospital room and resized it to fit the original scene. Then I zoomed and positioned the image. Next, I warped the image slightly to get the mirror ball effect. Then I applied some blur and using another transform node, I flipped the image. Finally, I merged the image with the background by reducing the opacity. Here I use another mask to reduce the influence of the reflection on the doctor. Now let's add Tuk Tuk. I have rendered Tuk Tuk twice, once with the reflection and once without the reflection. Now I do some color correction and add a transform node. The transform node is there in case I need to reposition the image. Now in the reflection pass image, I did the same thing, but I instanced the transformation node from the previous so that in case I need to reposition the image, I wouldn't have to do it over and over again. And then I merged the two together with the beauty pass or the non-reflection pass on the top. Then I added a defocus node and merged it with the background. If you notice, Tuk Tuk is not sitting well in the scene. He is not merging with the scene. To correct that, I used the glossy color pass that I rendered with the beauty pass and gave it the same color correction and instance transformation node. And I merged it with the others just before the defocus node. And what it does is give me a more natural light wrap effect. Now the glossy color pass in itself does not contain any alpha data. So I used the alpha data of the original beauty pass. And this is what the scene looks like in Fusion. The next step for all of my postcards has been to render it out from Fusion and open it in On1 Photo RAW. Here I do some additional color corrections. I add the grunge and the texture maps, and I also add the border to make it seem like a postcard. The grunge map is added to enhance the looks of the postcard. Then I take it to Affinity Photo where I add the text. And this is what the final result look like. Thanks for watching. Do leave a feedback. I'll be uploading how I did the other postcard soon. Until then, see you.